Milliyet Skorer TV'ye hoş geldiniz sevgili izleyenler. Bugün sizler için çok güzel bir röportajım olacak. Hem sizleri yeni birisiyle tanıştıracağım hem de çok yakından tanıdığınız bir isim bizlerle birlikte. Şimdi diyeceksiniz ki böyle nasıl bir toplantı olmuş bu, herkes nasıl birbirine denk gelmiş. Burada çok güzel bir şekilde sizlere anlatacağız. Efendim Jasper Yıldırım ve Demba Ba'yla birlikteyiz. Çok enteresan bir ekip olduk şu anda. Hoş geldiniz.
Hoş bulduk.
Hoş bulduk.
Şimdi ben size başlamak istiyorum öncelikle.
Okay.
İzleyicimiz sizi bir tanısın. Jasper Yıldırım kimdir?
Well, who is Jasper Yıldırım? So, as many of you may know from my last name, I'm the son of Robert Yıldırım, the president of Samsunspor. I'm a part of the Amisos group. This is our multi-club platform or multi-club ownership group. In that, I'm a director and I'm also the president of USL Dunkirk for the time being. I also chair the executive committee that oversees the club. And lastly, I have a corporate role in our family business where I'm the chief investment officer. It's great. Thanks for having me on.
Peki Demba'ya da hoş geldin diyelim. Tekrar Türkiye'ye uzun bir aradan sonra geri döndü. Biraz Amisos gruptan yani o ne yapıyor orada o da anlatırsa çok memnun oluruz.
More so in Amisos, I'm overseeing also the operation with Jasper in the executive committee, part of the executive committee. But my main task and my main job is being director of football in Dunkirk directly.
Peki şimdi tabii ki Amisos grupla ilgili biraz sonra konuşacağım ama hazır yeri gelmişken sormak istiyorum. Siz nasıl bir araya geldiniz?
No, it's a good question on how we sort of were introduced to one another. Of course, watching football, being a fan of football, I knew of the profile, the name, the legend, Demba. It wasn't until we were looking for a second club that I was actually provided Demba's number from a colleague of mine. It was passed to my father, and they asked me to just speak with Demba, see what he's looking to do in football, because he came to Turkey and he was discussing with people within the community, and in doing so, we got to speaking of his goals, what he wanted to look to do, achieve in his career post-football. It aligned with what we were looking for as far as from our side, from the Amisos group, about expanding and how we want to work with reputable people in the industry and how we can align. And I think after that very first call with Demba, he didn't know of me, I never spoke to him. We just discussed ideas, our thoughts on the sport, our thoughts on potential cooperation, and listening to what he had to say was very captivating, very sort of insightful. And I would say after that very first call, I really want to work with him. And fortunately, we were able to work with one another, which I'm sure we'll explain a bit more. And it took about 8 months prior to just working together before we could have successfully landed on a club.
Peki, şimdi Amisos gruptan bahsediyoruz. İzleyenlerimiz de soracak nedir diye. Şimdi ben size sorayım biraz. Bize Amisos gruptan bahseder misiniz? Hangi takımlar dahil Amisos grubunun içine?
Yeah, so the Amisos group, it's our MCO. MCO standing for Multi-Club Ownership Group. It is founded by my father, Robert Yıldırım. Currently, within the portfolio, we have 2 clubs. One being Samsunspor and a majority of USL Dunkirk. I think the idea of Amisos really stemmed from my father wanting to find a way to enhance and better improve Samsunspor outside of maybe the traditional routes that are known to the Turkish football market. We may be one of the, if not the first MCO out of Turkey. Mm-hmm. And what we noticed, how we can enhance Samsunspor as well as Dunkirk, is similar to what we do in business. We have, in our corporate side, acquired companies. We group them together and we work on ways for them to cooperate with each other while also focusing on those independent individual clubs themselves. In that, this is something that's unique, I would say, potentially to Samsunspor and us due to the nature of our ownership in the group. It could be difficult for other clubs to replicate this because you're going to have to expand resources that can go to one club and give it to another club. But in doing so, we think we are creating value for both clubs, which is ultimately what we want to do. I can give you some statistics very briefly. About in 2012, it was noted by UEFA that there's around 40 MCOs in existence. 5 years later, they noted around 100. Around today, there's over 300. So we're not different by no means when it comes to football in general, but many of those come from big cities. They come from the US, the UK, Spain. So as mentioned, you don't hear much in Turkey, so we're honored to be able to be one of those here in Turkey. Where we differentiate ourselves is we try to focus on player development and accessing players. Our strategy in business, I would say we go more upstream. What I mean by that is as far as recruiting of talent for both teams or one team, we're able to go closer to where some of younger talent enter European football. We may discuss more about the clubs, our vision for the future, but when we looked at France and other markets, we wanted to have a place where there's notable entryways for footballers from different regions, even outside of Europe. And this is why France was selected, but this is also what we want to do. We see Samsunspor, we invested heavily in an academy. This academy is going to produce talent, and without a B-team system in Turkey at the moment, sometimes it's difficult to bring talent from academy to the A-team. There's a lot of talent in Turkey, and sometimes we want to find ways that we can maybe market some in overseas geographies like France, Portugal, and others. But at the same time, we want to also find a way of recruiting talent from out of Turkey and bring them to Samsunspor and elsewhere. So this is another route. So there's this cooperation amongst the clubs as far as recruiting. And then also in the football ecosystem, when we deal with other clubs, when we deal with agencies and players themselves, hearing that we can discuss on the basis of two teams and not one, and maybe even more teams in the future, it allows more of an appetite for them to want to engage with business for us. So in short, we want to expand to a different region. We thought this would support Samsunspor and make them more stronger, gives them a competitive advantage. We believe for Dunkirk, it's the same. We can recruit talent from Samsunspor, from the youth team, and we think that it can help us when we go and discuss with other clubs or agents and intermediaries in regards to bringing players into either of the clubs.
Peki Demba'ya sormak istiyorum. Onun Dunkirk süreci nasıl başladı?
Well, after the inquiry, it was all about, for me, the first few months, coming in and observing a little bit how the process of work were being done in the club, in order to be able to put in place the strategy that Jasper just talked about. So after a couple of months of observation, I really bought into my position and started to develop the club in terms of processes of work, especially on the football side, because it was almost an empty land there. And so far I'm happy of the development we have had in the first 15 months in charge, and we keep developing. As Jasper said, the first thing that we did, it's obviously the scouting department, because being able to source the best, some of the best talent, and bring them in to develop, that was one of the first tasks. And on the sportive side, we keep developing the club in order to reach our goals.
Peki şimdi aslında siz biraz bahsettiniz bana gelişim sürecinden tabii ki, ama biraz daha detaylandırırsak neler anlatırsınız Amisos Grup'la ilgili, Dunkirk'le ilgili? Siz başladıktan sonra ne gibi gelişimler oldu?
Yeah, maybe I can explain firstly how we came to our first club and how we found Dunkirk, and then I'll explain some of the, let's say, investments or some of the goals we have for the club. we actually, even prior to meeting Demba, were looking at a team in Portugal. For the next step, we want to either target Portugal or France because we notice those two markets have close connections to what we consider as the frontier, the next place where a lot of bigger clubs are targeting, and that is Latin America, so South America, as well as the Africas. Due to languages, it's easier to recruit players from those regions and bring them to France than it is to Turkey. So once we started targeting a few clubs, we started discussing, negotiating. We didn't, maybe it's better that we didn't, acquire the Portuguese club. Then I was introduced to Demba. We started to look at French clubs. We had negotiations with a second division French team prior to Dunkirk. It unfortunately didn't succeed. Following that, me and Demba went back to the drawing board to see what can we look at, what is better for us at this time, and we came upon Dunkirk. When we visited the club, and it's funny the way Demba and I work, he said, Jasper, when it comes to football, that's me. I'll do the studying of whether this could be the right place for a project. When it comes to the business, the finances, the cash flow, that's on you. It's part of your your work that you do in the business world. So it was a great connection as far as looking at Dunkirk. When we went to Dunkirk, we saw a lot of places for improvement, but there were a few criteria that we noticed that really made us want to select this club as the club. That was the community, the belediyesi. They support the club. They subsidize the club. Prior to us coming, they built 6 fields, practice fields for training. They had plans to develop a training facility. They were just looking for an owner that can consistently support the club and manage the club. In doing this, we said, okay, we enjoy this. We want to pursue this club. Unfortunately, they were in the 3rd division at the time. During our negotiations, they were promoted to the 2nd division. I've been a part of many corporate acquisitions, buying other businesses in the business world, not in football. But one thing I'll always tell you, it's easy to buy something. It's easy, at the end of the day, I give a value, whether you like my price, you accept, you take the money, I take the business, the club. The issue then is, how do you manage? How do you integrate it? Mm-hmm. So once we acquired the club, we had to integrate it with what we wanted our project to be, and that took some time. But some of the great things that happened was, and thanks to Demba, as he mentioned, he focused on scouting. He also focused on all parts of the sportive side, from coaching staff to medical staff, strength and conditioning. He was reviewing all the systems to improve. And I think it really shows the improvements we brought, because when you look at the first half of the season, the first season we were in, which is last year, we did not perform too well. We brought in a new coach. We improved some things. In the second half of that season, we were one of the top clubs in the league. And this year, we started off fairly strong. So we look to improve the core functions that make a football club good, from coaching all the way to the methodology of football, thanks to Demba. And we're working with the belediyesi and the municipality to see how we can realize both a football facility that is more world-class, as well as a potential academy.
Demba'ya yine sormak istiyorum. Şimdi Fransa'ya döndü. Türkiye'nin de çok sevilen bir ismi. Kendisi hala yani. Şimdi ben de duygulandım. Türkiye'nin de çok sevilen bir ismi kendisi. Yani gitmeden önce buradan herhangi bir teklif aldım mı? Belki Samsunspor da olabilir bu. Tabii ki hani Başkan Yüksel Yıldırım'la görüşmüş olabilir. Ya da herhangi başka bir takım. Yani ben tabii ki hani özellikle Beşiktaş'tan belki bir teklif almış olabilir.
No, it was actually the case when I was in Göztepe. prior leaving Göztepe, I had long talks with Mr. Mehmet Sepil that wanted to bring me into the ownership of the club and being able to manage and more or less do a little bit what we are doing now, because this is a project, what I am doing now in Dunkirk is a project that I've been thinking about it for the last maybe 10, 15 years, you know, a long time before I stopped football. And once again, thanks to Jasper and to Robert, because they gave me also that opportunity, and I'm grateful for that. But I was still playing, and we didn't really find an agreement with Mehmet. So I moved on in my career, and then when I stopped, I had a brief meeting with the management here in Beşiktaş, but I think my vision and what they wanted to offer me was not aligned, so I declined. And then after we started that project with Jasper, which I'm very happy of, and this is the start of a good and new and a good journey.
Şimdi tabii Demba'dan öğrendik neler olduğunu Dunkirk sürecinden önce. Şimdi ben tabii biraz da duygulandım. Türkiye'ye getirmeye çalışıyorum farkındaysanız Demba'yı. O yüzden size şunu soracağım. Türkiye'de evet Samsunspor şu anda Amisos grubunun içinde. Ancak baktığımızda yani siz biraz daha international düşünüyorsunuz. Onu da anladım. Ama aslında Türkiye'de de çok yetenekli oyuncular var. Çok yetenekli gençler var. Zaten Samsunspor'un alt yapısından siz de biliyorsunuzdur kulüpten, akademiden. Başka almak istediğiniz böyle Türkiye'de sizin böyle gözünüze bir kestirdiğiniz ya burayı geliştirebilirim vesaire dediğiniz bir kulüp var mı? Ya illa Süper Lig olmak zorunda değil. Hani belki birincilikte vardır.
Yeah, of course. When it comes to the first league, Super League, we're unable to buy a team. There's going to be a big conflict of interest. We can't look at other lower leagues within Turkey. I believe we have great connections with some, to the point where there isn't the necessity to always go and acquire a majority or a minority stake. I think the dynamics in which we engage with some of the Turkish clubs is healthy and is already beneficial. That is why our eyes are also expanding abroad. Sometimes we utilize our connections in the business world to support us in football. We are one of, if not the largest investor in Portugal. That is why the Portuguese market also made sense outside of investments when it comes. It made sense because of not just the football side in recruiting players, but also the dynamics of engaging the business community. We're also looking at the means of the Africas, as far as potentially looking at cooperations with academies and so forth. What we have in Turkey, and I know you want to center this more so in Turkey, we are putting a lot of ambition, a lot of our resources into our academy. We've recently, and he'll be joining January 1st of next year, brought in an ex-PSG manager, as well as he was the ex-chief scout of an MLS team, to help engage the academy in Samsun. In addition to that, we have an agreement with Toulouse, and with Toulouse, they're sharing know-how with us. This know-how is from data analytics to recruiting to systems to processes. And as we implement this know-how in Samsun, we also think this will trickle down and move and be shared with Dunkirk down the road and other clubs within the system. So to answer directly, we haven't necessarily looked for another target in Turkey. We have relations with different clubs. They're healthy relations. We think it may be best for us to focus for the next step. As mentioned, maybe in the Africas with an academy, or potentially Portugal or another jurisdiction and country.
Peki, şimdi yine Demba'ya sormak istiyorum. Şimdi Dunkirk'ün başlıca hedefi nedir şu anda saha içi olarak, onu soralım.
On the pitch, I would say it's to play good football. You know, this is, I think, for me, what is probably the most important, because playing good football allows you to give to the fans a great experience whenever they come in the stadium, you know. And to play good football, obviously, there is multiple type of good football, but ours, from my point of view, is a possession-based football, you know, where we're trying to obviously take the ball and dictate the game, and have a good process of work on a weekly basis in the training, which allows us so far to win some games. We lost some, but I would say the most important right now is to play good football and to enjoy what we're doing and to give joy to the people that are watching us.
Peki o zaman şimdi Dunkirk'ün hedefini sordum. Amisos grubun 2025'teki ilk hedefine bana onu söyler misiniz? Yani siz aslında çok güzel anlattınız bana bundan sonra neler yapmak istediğinizi. Mesela totalde ileride kaç takım olacak Amisos grubunun içinde mesela? Onu da merak ediyorum çünkü Samsunspor da bu işin bir parçası. Mutlaka tabii. Siz de çok güzel anlattınız. Mutlaka oyuncu alışverişleri de olacak. Mesela hani dediğim gibi 2025'te ilk hedefiniz nedir ve ne kadar büyüyecek Amisos Group?
No, I think you bring a good point. Firstly, Amisos Group is actually named Amisos Sports and Entertainment. So I will say this to say currently we're only in football. There is a possibility that we could, if it makes sense from an investment standpoint, look at other sports or venture capital within the sports field. However, if we're only sticking to football, yeah, there is a goal to expand. As I mentioned, there could be a couple more targets. We don't want to be too large, and the most important thing is we don't want to move too quickly. We experience when acquiring Dunkirk, it takes time to integrate a club, also to take over a club, to try and bring your project to that club, because a club has history and they want to know your future there. So we don't want to go very quickly, buy this club, buy that club. We also have to understand what are the demands of the club, what are the projects each club will want to do. These take resources. We bought Dunkirk the very first year Samsunspor was going into Super League. So the budget, football, the whole dynamic of Samsunspor was going to change. It was going to evolve. It was the same with Dunkirk. We bought Dunkirk when it went from third league to the second league. So we have patience when we make our investments, but we are looking at potential cooperations, as mentioned, with academies in the Africas. We're looking at opportunities in Latin America. There could be another club in Europe. My specialty is corporate acquisition. So me with a team, we are looking and studying clubs, but we're not too quickly wanting to move forward. When it comes to football, it is what they call a buyer's market. I will say almost every club is for sale except for the biggest clubs. It's always, as mentioned, for the right price. So for us, it's not about what is available, what can we buy, it's what makes sense, what is going to add value to Amisos. So we're looking. I don't think we would expand in the next year, maybe in the next 2 years. If an opportunity comes our way, we won't say no. And then we have our goals for our clubs. I'm sure you heard from my father. We would love to play European football within 3 to 5 years. At this rate, maybe it could be sooner, but we will see. And for Dunkirk, we have some goals that aren't always about getting promoted, but is, as Demba said, is playing good football, quality football, and improving anyone that comes into the system.
Evet, too many business we talk about, it's enough. Samsunspor maçlarına bir gelelim şöyle şimdi. Evet. Bizim izleyicinin en keyiflendiği bölüm burası. Evet, Samsunspor maçlarını zaten izliyorsunuzdur.
Tabii ki.
Nasıl buluyorsunuz takımı bu sene?
One, I will say, this team was the same team from last year.
Evet.
There was maybe 3 players added last winter, and only one is still playing for the club. So the whole team you see, they're from last year. We did not start the way we wanted to start last year, but I told my father after several weeks last year, be patient. You built a really good team. Your technical guys, your scouts, the team's quality. And just be patient, they will show themselves. It took the second half of last season to show our strength. And this year, the results are amazing. I can't be happy. I'm very curious to see how things end for the season. But it's been a great first 10 weeks. So very, very satisfied with what I'm seeing.
Demba'ya soralım. Takip ediyorum Süper Lig'i, özellikle Samsunspor'u tabii ki. Gerçi Galatasaray Samsunspor maçına gitti biliyorum. Nasıl buluyor Samsunspor'u?
Yes, I do follow the league, more so Samsun, because of them being in the group. I'm interested in the result they are doing, and also in the player we can steal from them sometimes. Maybe if they're allowed to take some, if they're allowed to give us some players. But and also still follow Beşiktaş, obviously, to see how it goes. And being in the stadium, it reminds me a little bit of the games I used to play here, because Turkish football is pretty special. It has its own game, its own culture, its own philosophy, and I would say it didn't change too much. Samsung was playing good. I won't say that Gala was much better than Samsung. I think the fact that also, coming and playing this stadium with this crowd, sometimes it's also impressive, and it's not like you can put your game plan as good as when you're playing home. But I would say the difference on the field this game in the weekend was, at the end of the day, the quality of the players, because when you give the ball in the spaces to Dries Mertens or to Osimhen or whoever they have there, at the end of the day, they make things different than any other players, not only in Samsun, but in the league in general. So I think that was probably the biggest difference in last game.
İstanbul'da çok, az önce de söyledim, yani çok büyük bir sevgi vardı kendisinde. Fransa'ya döndükten sonra böyle nasıl bir süreç olmuş kendisi için, onu da merak ediyorum. Mutlaka orada da tabii ki çok seveni vardır ama hani burada çok başka olduğu için böyle o süreçten biraz bahsedebilir mi acaba?
It's much different, Up to this day, I would say. Up to this day, it's much different. The love is still there. And on both sides, I have to be honest, because whenever I come here, I just feel like I'm home. I just feel like I'm home when I come here. So it's much different, It's there's nothing to be compared with France. I would say I am in France more so because my family is there than anything else. And now Dunkirk.
Tabii. Peki, şimdi Samsunspor'u izliyor musunuz diye sordum. Süper Lig'le ilgili ne düşünüyorsunuz? Şimdi Samsun yeni geldi Süper Lig'e. Mutlaka siz daha önce de izliyorsunuzdur ama şimdi Türkiye Ligi biraz değişik bir lig, biliyorsunuz yani. Çok yüksek tempo diyemeyeceğim de ne denir yani, çok taraftarların da yani çok ateşle seyrettiği bir...
It's a lot of passion.
Aynen öyle, evet. Yani diğer liglerden farklı, Premier Lig'den farklı, Bundesliga'dan çok farklı. Burada biraz daha az teknik var. Siz ne dersiniz Süper Lig'le ilgili? Nasıl buluyorsunuz izlediğinizde?
Well, firstly, I appreciate the question. To let you know, I'm not a football professional. I would say I'm a professional that works in football, but watching Samsunspor rise from 3rd division to the Super League, and also being a fan of another team, I'm sure the viewers know what team that may be. It's the same as my father. And I can tell you a funny story about how I separated my support from that team later, but Turkey actually has quality football. Turkey's football is very quality. Yes, there's a lot of passion for fans, and sometimes it can interfere with football being played, but that aside, there's quality talent. There's a will and a want to win. Some of the games, even when they're not with some of the biggest clubs, there's a lot of intensity. And this is this is why I love sports. When even the teams that may be at the lower half or the upper half of the table, when they want to win and put on a good match, it's great to watch. And I think this is what we're experiencing in the Super League. It's very competitive. It's our goal to always remain in the upper half of the table year after year, but this is not an easy process. This year we started with success. We'll see what next year may bring. So for us, it's always doing the best we can every time we step on the pitch. Look, we know my father's done interviews where he mentioned he was an old Galatasaray fan. I was raised a Galatasaray fan, I'll be honest. It was 2018. This is the very first year we acquired Samsunspor. I didn't know too much of the deal. And to be honest, I've never worked with Samsunspor or been a part of the Samsunspor organization outside of 2 years representing the basketball team as its president. I came into Amisos when I acquired Dunkirk on behalf of my father and worked with Demba. That was my first time actually going into football. But coming back to my story, it's 2018. It's the very first year we are in Samsunspor. I go to a Galatasaray game. They're in Division Super League. We're in Division 3. I wear a uniform. It's a Galatasaray uniform. And our fans criticize me. And I was like, but guys, we're in TFF2. We're not in the Super League yet. Of course, the support for Galatasaray will leave. But after I realized how much it meant to the fans, the very next day, I go to my closet, I take all my Galatasaray uniforms, I give them away, and I bought all into my support for Samsunspor. Because, as you said, fans are passionate. And since then, it's been a great, let's say, story to where we are today. And hopefully the story continues to get better.
Wow. Yalnız var ya.
Hey, I came from the States, had American sports culture to me, so I didn't know the rules. And I learned the hard way, but it worked out.
Evet, işe yaramıştır tabii. Ay ben çok korkardım ben olsaydım. Güzel hikayeymiş. Peki. Evet, yavaş yavaş sonuna geliyorum röportajımızın. Zaten mutlaka izleyenlerimiz hem çok keyiflenmişler hem de bilgi edinmişlerdir. Çünkü aslında şöyle bir durum var. Ben Zeycan Hanım'la da konuşmuştum. Biliyorsunuz benim bir önceki röportajımı izleyenlerimiz de bilir. Bunları şimdi çok fazla bilen yok Türkiye'de. Evet. O yüzden çok kıymetli bir röportaj oldu benim için. Çok teşekkür ederim. Çünkü bilinmesi lazım. Şu anda mesela şu konuşuluyor. Samsunspor çok başarılı. Evet. Ama aslında başarının temelleri bakın nereye dayanıyor yani. Ne kadar sistemli ilerleyen bir aslında şey var ortada. Bir düzen var yani ortada. Akademiyi zaten Alp'le de hep konuşuyoruz. Ben çok ziyaret etmek istiyorum. Çünkü çok güzel bir yermiş. Herkes çok anlatıyor.
Bir gün size davet ederiz.
Çok teşekkürler. Siz gittiniz, gezdiniz akademiyi.
Tabii ki, evet.
Herkes anlatıyor çok güzel diye gidenler. Ben gidemedim bir türlü. Alp. Son olarak şimdi yani ben belki sizden rica edeyim. Biraz daha böyle bunları medya çok sevmediğinizi biliyorum. Çok göz önünde olmak istemiyorsunuz ama biraz daha böyle yani Türkiye'de biraz zor biliniyor bu tarz şeyler. Biraz daha belki anlatmak için bir proje yaparsınız.
No, that is the case. This Amasor Sports and Entertainment Group, it's not really known. We just made our first acquisition, as mentioned. This was our first step to moving, and with Dunkirk, that made us a multi-club organization. So for us, we want to stay quiet. We want to focus on developing the proper strategies and setting the proper roadmap to where we want to go. That is why we didn't go immediately to the media to start announcing things. I think I personally work better in silence away from the media, as mentioned. But I think over time you are going to hear more of the dynamics of the Amasos group. It's one thing, there would be more maybe information readily available in due time. In 2025, we'll start publishing more so people can understand more of who we are, what we stand for, where do we want to go and how things are going to be.
Demba'ya da son olarak sözü verelim. Yani neler söylemek isterse söylesin. Yani son olarak ne söylemek ister? Çünkü hem çok güzel bir projenin içinde şu anda kendisi. Hem işte aslında bir ayağı Türkiye'de, yani aslında bir ayağı Samsunspor'da şu anda. Hadi neler söyler bununla ilgili böyle Türk fanlarına?
Well, it's just an external, I think, for me, point of view of the Amisos group, of who they are. And I have to say, he didn't say it at the beginning of the interview, but being able to pitch somebody and in 20 minutes he managed to buy in shows the vision and how great they are inside the group, you know, because to be able to understand quickly, to be able to bet on someone and to decide to move forward with that someone just on the base of a discussion, because, you know, many people ask me, oh, but you met them before when you were playing in Turkey and all of this, and the reality is that I didn't know them when I was playing here, you know. So it's great to be able to work with people with great vision, and it makes everything be easier. And I'm happy that I am involved in Dunkirk, not in Samsun, because I'm not sure I can deal with Turkish football myself. Due to all this emotion and passion, and I'd rather be in Dunkirk, where I also know the environment more than Turkey, I have to be honest, but it's way more stable, and I love to build. I love to build, and in Europe, in Western Europe, I would say, because of the lack of passion like we have here, it's easier to build.
Peki. Samsunspor'u Avrupa'da görecek miyiz?
Göreceksiniz.
Göreceğiz değil mi?
Aynen.
Çok güzel olur.
Güzel.
Yani sizin için de çok güzel olur. Hem bu projelerinizi daha da desteklemiş olur Samsunspor'un Avrupa başarısı.
Bir de Samsunspor taraftar olduğum için tabii ki çok büyük şey olur.
Evet. Bu arada Jasper çok güzel Türkçe konuşuyor. Bunu söylemek istiyorum. Gerçekten çok güzel. Yani benden güzel Türkçe konuşuyor ama konuşmadı. Bir sonraki röportajımızı Türkçe yapacağız. İnanın benden güzel konuşuyor ama. Sokakta Samsun'a gidersen görürseniz Türkçe konuşun. Hepiniz anlıyor. Çok teşekkür ediyorum size.
Ben de çok sağ olun.
Çok güzel bir röportaj oldu. Hem de çok bilgilenmiş olduk. Bu bilgileri yaymak çok önemli. Çünkü dediğim gibi bazen insanların haberi olmuyor bazı durumlardan. O yüzden size başarılar diliyorum ve çok teşekkür ediyorum.
Thank you.
Demba'ya da başarılar diliyoruz. Çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Türkiye'ye sık sık bekliyorum. Ben bir kulüp daha yapacağım galiba Türkiye'den. İkisine. Bir kulüp daha şöyle. Ama zor değil mi tabii? Sıkıntı olur.
It all depends on the league. Lige göre sıkıntı yaşayabiliriz ama şu an biz kaç kulüp baktık, ilgileniyoruz ve onlar yurt dışı olduğu için belki bizim Türk yatırımlar belki birkaç sene sonra gelebilir.
Tamam, peki birkaç sene bekleyeceğiz. Bakın çok güzel Türkçe konuştu. Evet, tekrar teşekkür ediyorum. Ağzınıza sağlık. Efendim röportajımızın sonuna geldik. Tekrar görüşmek dileğiyle. Hoşça kalın.